Footy and Frothies, Barney and Daggy with you again. We've got to get stuck into round 12. We've got Origin on the horizon. There's plenty going on, David. It's a nice hat you're wearing. What's happening in that brain underneath
Thank
it?
you, mate. Hello, all the peoples out there. I can feel it in the air, the energy running through Adrian. It's fired up. Should be good. Did you manage to get hold of our old mate Guns?
No, I'll be honest, I forgot.
Typical Tiger supporter. Doesn't want to share in the glory with his
I'll tell you that. We've
fellow
got
supporters.
sorry, Ovies. I love you, mate. So we will Ovies, come on next week when we make it 4 from 5 for last month. So Ovies, we'll get you on soon. There's a few. We've got a backlog now. We've got to catch up with good friends of the show, Trent. We've got Damo gagging at the bit. Danon. Josiah dropped us a line. Shout out to him. So we'll see what the next few weeks. We'll try and get a guest rolling in and out for the next few weeks anyway.
I was trying to get the fight out of you, mate. Well played. Professional cover there. Smother. Like it.
Mate, when you've been a bum for a long time, it's easy to get away with it. Don't worry.
Very good.
Yeah, good week though. Very good week.
Was.
Enjoyable Saturday afternoon. We got to watch both our teams win. I got to swear at some jockeys, and yeah, life was good.
Couple of comfortable wins. One a little bit more comfortable than the other.
Yeah, but fairly easy watching in both parts. But anyway, we'll get to all of that. We've got anything you want to talk about?
Footy was a little more one-sided this week, I think. Wasn't as many sort of down to the last-minute games.
No,
interesting to see. A few changes and injuries really starting to take a toll at this time of the year now with Origin selection. So big 4 or 6 weeks, I think, for the competition over the next month and a half. It's going to be interesting to see what plays out.
It is interesting. When we review, I might pull up a couple of draws for some of those teams in questions because feasibly you could make a case Brisbane might not win a game for 6 weeks. You make a case that Penrith might struggle. Depends how they want to rotate their 6 players. We saw last.
The whole bottom 4 had a win last week. So.
Well, that's right. And a couple, like especially the Tigers and Canberra, they all of a sudden have quite cosy looking draws, or if the appropriate plays aren't there. So we'll touch on all of that. The biggest news is that the Origin teams have come out. I don't. It's an excuse for everyone to whinge about them, but I don't think there's too many shocks. It was pretty much most of what we expected. Tavita Pangai Jr., perhaps the biggest shock. Did have quite a good game in hindsight on Sunday Arvo. Hudson Young, Tyson Frizzell, both in the frame. It's Young's debut, and Nico comes onto the bench. Interesting how we see how that's going to play out. What involvement he may or may not have. Queensland pretty much was what you'd expect. Hammer comes in for Gay Guy. Reece Walsh gets the nod in the fullback spot, and Murray Tuolangi on the wing. As we suggested, we didn't think Coates' form probably warranted being retained. Flegler is the new front row partner of Lindsay Collins. No Mo, but Ruben Cotter on the bench with Tino. So, look, any shocks for you, Barn? Any? We're going to get stuck into Sunday night. We're going to do a proper Origin preview, but anything just quickly that caught your eye or your initial thoughts on any of this? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think Mo was pretty tough to miss out, to be honest.
He's fantastic again on the weekend as well.
An absolute wrecking ball for the last 4 weeks, ball in hand, and he's obviously there. You've got Flegler, who's played in that position before, and a couple of others that seem to just squeeze in behind him. But he's in the periphery, so if anything happens, he'd probably be the first man in, I would imagine. Let's be frank, Tavita Pangai Jr. is definitely the biggest shock out of the whole situation. I didn't even see him as a borderline front rower at the moment. To be honest, his form hasn't, I don't think, really warranted a position in the New South Wales team. But as both Brandy and Freddie have said, he's an X factor player. He's there for his size and aggression. And the thing for me is obviously, there's going to be a 10-minute period of the game where you're going to need that size and aggression and really get him in there. But how well does he control himself in that other 10 or 15 minutes?
Well, he might only play 15. Just think, he might only play 15 minutes.
I dare say he'd only be somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes at the most. But there's going to be a 10 or 15-minute period where they are going to come at him. They are going to target him. They'll probably try to rile him up and get a penalty out of him. They'll be making him work double time in defence. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think that may lead to a little bit of frailty there and maybe a penalty and maybe even a try put on him at one point in the game. But if he can get out there and rattle a few cages and have a couple of those forwards on the back foot in that first 10 or 15 minutes he's out there, it could be a masterstroke.
Well, it's not like they're an ultra aggressive Queensland pack. Collins and Flegler will have a go, but it's not like there's Kafusi, Tallis, the likes of them. Someone like
Arrow
that.
doesn't mind a scrap.
Arrow, yeah. So interesting to see how that pans out. I suppose if Clemmer hadn't have, I think a couple of years ago he lost his shit at Freddie over something. So if he hadn't have been blacklisted, I assume he would have been around the conversation. He's the only one I could think of really not in that list. Stefano, Crichton, the extended bench. Now Campbell Graham was 18th man. Apparently fitness wasn't up to completing a full camp. Has been named for the Rabbitohs this week though, so a little bit like
a bit of a con job, I think. Get him out of the squad, get him back home.
I think it's a little bit of that really. For the same reason Blake Brayley's come in as cover. It's just I guess to shadow round and let Cook and Graham both get a full game in and not be sitting around.
If Souths weren't playing this weekend, I'd pretty much guarantee you that he'd still be in the 18 jumper.
Yeah, I think so too.
The fact that they are, I think, gone out of their way to let him go back and play his game, and they bring Brayley in. Obviously not needed this weekend with the Sharks not playing. It's pretty simple, really, and it's just a little bit of a nod to the club teams, I guess. Nico's an interesting one. How they're going to play him? I think they may end up using him as a roving 6/13 at some point in the game if they are chasing points, or even if they're well on the front foot. Get him in there, give Yo a 10 or 15 minute break, and just let him play on both sides of the field, trying to link up with Luai and Cleary there. Add an extra ball player in and around the edges, more so than in the middle. And then you have your likes of Murray and Martin sort of fold back into the middle in defence and cover that area there.
I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. I think he's largely there as cover. I can see it being like...
May even play a bit of hooker.
Well, you remember through sort of the mid-2000s, probably early to mid-2000s, you'd have your players like they'd always have a backup half or a backup fullback on the bench, and they just come on and play dummy half. They just, hit up through the middle.
Shovel the ball
along and maybe take a couple, try and beat someone with a bit of footwork. I don't know if he'll necessarily do that or whether he'll come on and they'll just say to Tommy, mate, go do your best, sniff around for
there's a bit of talk that Luai may end up at...
Luai's probably got the best footwork for that. I don't know.
And acceleration as well.
Yeah. So we'll see. Interesting to see how it pans out. He may do none of that. He might just sit on the bench.
Absolutely. He might sit down on the bench for the entirety of the game.
The other thing that stood out to me, I guess, you go in thinking Queensland love being underdogs when they probably should almost be favourites, but when you do see Val Holmes and Hammer in the centres and who they're up against, I have concerns about Hammer defending in the front in the front line. A couple of pairs when you got Latrell running straight at you for 80 minutes, that would be concerning to me. I'm not saying Gay Guy's better or worse.
Gay Guy got absolutely schooled on the weekend by Connor Tracy. He turned him inside and out that many times. He didn't know what way he was going.
So did Val Holmes.
I was going
to say, did you watch Val?
Yeah, Val Holmes got a bit of the same. And his defence has been a bit frail this year, really. Seems like every second or third game, someone really gives him a bit of a touch-up in defence. So extremely talented ball in hand, but obviously going to be target areas.
Yeah, I can see this being the usual forward battle, and then early spreads left and right, and just trying to isolate them. We saw, 2 years back when they blew them away, when they had both Latrell and Tommy fit, there was all those long range tries, just busting over people, and Teddy's, straight on the back of him, waiting for a bit of space. So, and with Fox there as well, you're going to see, there's plenty of pace and support. So, I can see that being the key, but we'll get into all of the extended preview come Sunday night. Congratulations, Reece Walsh. I think well deserved.
Yes, absolutely.
Makes sense when Ponga's got his concerns again. They really don't need him playing the ball, all every which way, but back having copped a head knock in Origin. So no issues at all for Reece Walsh. You should see what he brings to the table in that arena.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a similar tactic with Walsh, I would imagine. I can see a hell of a lot of uh, high hanging bombs just sitting up in the wind, with Reece Wallace waiting underneath and getting absolutely belted when the ball hits him on the chest. With the likes of Latrell, Tommy, and a couple of your back rowers really lining him up to give him a bit of a rough start to this match. So.
It hasn't happened so much at Brisbane this year, but remember at the Warriors, he used to cop an absolute flogging under the high ball.
Yeah.
He used to get, he got belted back there. Anyway, he cops it. He stands up, and Billy said the other key factor was the chat he brings at the back of the field, which can understand. So more power
He
to
may
him.
even get in and around a couple of those efforts to try and line him up as well, which
Absolutely,
could cause problems.
Definitely. As I said, full preview to come on the weekend. Injury news. Got a few this week. The Cheese is out 7 to 8 weeks with a broken hand. I believe requiring some surgery there, so that's not ideal for the Roosters or what's left of the Roosters season. Jake Turbo, 6 weeks, has to have surgery on his leg as well, I believe. So it doesn't look good. They're monitoring Campbell Graham. Ryan Madison being confirmed today, 4 weeks. So that's not ideal for Parramatta. And Elliot Whitehead, 6 weeks with another leg injury as well. He had a 2-week ban as well on top of that, but he took that.
He had his best game in a long time.
It was very good.
Whitehead on the weekend.
He's the only one, probably. Anyway, Sura and Egan are both out this week with or being monitored for head knocks. And player transfer news, 2 big mid-season transfers. Joe Offengawe has officially gone to Parra. He'll start at prop this week. Good pick-up for them. Has been in very, very good form for the last 18 months. Took a while to get going this year, but good pick-up for Parra. They can use his experience. And I believe, basically Tigers are off trying to offload 600K when they've got a fair swathe of decent forwards on the way through. So I hope they use that cash to shore up your junior Tupos and Matamuas and Poles and not have them all poached in the next couple of years. And Jake Arthur, I suggested perhaps last week, perhaps the swap deal might have been the way to go, but he's gone to Manly instead to get away from Brad for 3 years on the bench this year, but I can't imagine he would be going there not to play first grade in the next month. I think it's a good enough pickup. I think it's a good career move for everyone involved.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I can only imagine what it's been like for that poor young kid the last 12, 18 months. The amount of hate you see and rubbish that poor bloke's cop being at Parramatta with his old man as the coach. He's generally been, without being a standout in the first grade arena, he's been close enough to, a decent fit and a first grade jumper.
I can't recall him having a bad game. I'm not declaring him a world beater just yet, but
and the okay kicking game. His defence isn't best, but name me more than a couple of halves that do have very good defence realistically. And every game he played, you just see it all over social media. I hope he doesn't read it, poor fella.
I think I think he's got off it well and truly, but apparently, as we suggested a couple of weeks ago, he copped a gobful from Para fans after the game as well. So hopefully a fresh start is the best thing for him. You watch the same Para fans in 2 years' time when he's a star.
Want him back.
Calling him all names under the sun forever leaving. But anyway, they do support Parramatta. Any other news? I think that's it.
I know.
Well, cool. Let's get into our review. We kicked off an entertaining, high-scoring round of rugby league with an entertaining, not-so-high-scoring game of rugby league on Thursday night, 15-4. Penrith defeated Brisbane. You got some stats for us, Barn?
Yeah, mate. We had 1 try for Brisbane, 2 for Penrith. A misconversion for the Broncos, 2 out of 2 for Penrith, and 1 out of 1 penalty attempts, and 1 out of 1 field goal attempts for the Panthers. 78% completion, played 84% for Penrith, 738 running metres and 175 plus post-contact metres for Penrith. 1 line break to 6, 41 tackle bust to 48, 13 offloads to 14, 1 forced dropout for Penrith, 435 tackles played, 336, 10 errors to 9, 7 penalties conceded to 5, 1 ruck infringement to 3. Supercoach points: Cleary with 125, Carrigan with 102, Dylan Edwards with 80.
Again, another Brisbane game and Penrith game that started out with some hard-hitting action to kick us off. What did you make of the game overall, though?
Oh, it's just really I thought it was a pretty professional, clinical performance from Penrith. To be honest, they just spent most of the night camped in Brisbane's half, and basically went back to that death by 1,000 cuts. Scoreline probably should have been 38-12 or 38-18 or something. Realistically, at the end of the game, with all the denied tries and a couple of bomb tries, the state of the field really didn't help these two teams get into any real flow, with everyone sort of skating around and sliding all over the place. But yeah, Penrith just couldn't really. I think they probably should have won by more. They were well on top, as I said, field position, and just constantly threatening Brisbane's defensive line. Brisbane did defend extremely well to keep them sort of close enough for long enough, but yeah, there was a few times there. I think they let points sort of slip off their own bat, not just the referees in the field taking them away from them. Brisbane,
just on that,
they
I
kept
saw
coming.
some complaints about the bunker and the refereeing. Did you have an issue with any of the decisions?
Ultimately, they got the Reece Walsh one right. They looked like they were going to give the try until the ref got in there. Never seen that before. I don't think anybody ever has. I don't think the ref on field's turned around and gone, "No, mate, I think you're wrong."
No.
Hold on, don't fucking say try. But that was a little interesting. I thought the Taruva one was probably a double movement. I didn't think that was a try.
It's funny.
Which is another one you could have taken away from Penrith.
I didn't have a problem with it, and then just watching back again today, the more I looked at it, the more I thought there was a forward propulsion of the arm. So
the arm hits the ground, and at that point you can't promote it forward.
No, and I think he does lift his elbow.
Even though
again.
He was still sliding.
He probably, to be honest, he probably goes close to sliding at least to the line anyway. If he doesn't,
if he holds it in position.
The rest I didn't have a problem with. I think most of the I thought the knock on was a knock on. I thought, as you said, I thought the other one was fair enough. Not a bunker decision, but I thought the Reece Walsh strip and his logic behind it was fair enough. Where he stripped the ball over the line from Yo and was declared not in the act of scoring. As he said, if he wasn't there, he's in the act of scoring. So, I know it's probably a can of worms, but I thought that could have been play on. But anyway.
If you're in the end goal,
you're in the act of scoring.
You're not trying to not score, are you?
That's right. Exactly right.
As soon as you get over that line, you're trying to put the ball down for a try.
Exactly. But to your point though, and I'll let you get back to where you were.
No, you're right.
They were largely against Penrith, so.
Yeah, no, exactly. Could have been a much different score, especially if it was played in the day. I think the game would have panned out a lot differently. Brisbane were really stubborn in what they put up. They could have folded and just given up. This time 2 years ago they would have, and they would have got absolutely pummeled. But they keep fighting, even with Reynolds out, which is obviously one of their massive key playmakers in the game. Reece Walsh was good at times. He's got a few errors in him, but I really like the tenacity out of the bloke where he just continues to come. He makes a mistake, doesn't matter. Next set, he's trying it again. That's his job in the team, obviously.
I was going to make the same point in that, and this is now two weeks in a row, possibly even three, where he's tried everything under the sun, and all but pulled it off. So last week he had, there was a strip, and it was a couple of moments, and and this week was the same. I mean, he had the try assist, but he also Nelly had two or three other things come off, and the point I was going to make is there's going to come a week where everything's going to come off, and he's going to look like God's gift to rugby league for a week. Like eventually when he keep trying, and I can't see that Kevy's going to try and get any of it.
You saw at the start of the year there was a couple of games there where he just looked like the best player in the NRL. When it all sort of gelled.
It's going to gel for him, and he'll put 40 points on a team himself, like being involved with all of it at some point. Yeah, so definitely. I thought he was brilliant again.
I thought Penrith's two big front rowers probably did less work than they have for the majority of the season, to be honest. The back rowers and the outside backs really took it on their own to take it up to these middle forwards. They did really well in defence to contain Haas. He basically went nowhere with the ball majority of the night, but that did open up a bit of time and space for Carrigan, who had an absolute ripper of a game, probably close to the best performance of the weekend, realistically. He was enormous in this game. 60 odd tackles for a miss.
Somewhere between 67 and 69, depending where you look
Up
at.
near 200
Yeah.
meters, offloads, tackle busts, all the rest of it that goes along with it.
I thought he was
fantastic.
Yeah, I thought he was enormous. Absolutely.
I think it was planned a little bit too, to be honest. I think they knew that they'd be coming at Leota and Harris to try and really knock them over with their first few runs. So I think they just sort of let them sit back a little bit and wait and find their times to inject themselves rather than just constantly being the battering rams through the middle of the field. Worked quite well, really. Marty Tapau, I thought, was decent off the bench again, which seems to be doing something pretty good there for them. And Hetherington had one of his better games of the year. But Penrith just really targeted the edges of the Brisbane defence. They just continually ran at the halves and at the centres and the back rowers, and they had to scramble all night.
Well, Scott Sorensen's now having almost a month of his life. Again, it's his footwork at near the line is he's almost their point of attack now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely one of their major points. And on the other side, they switch it up between Hosking and Critter, and they're causing heaps of problems out there as well. Cleary was running the show again, as he does. His ball playing was fantastic. I just thought some of the changes of angles and the short balls were really good to put blokes into better positions than what they were before he threw the ball to them. And his kicking's just pretty much every week close to the best.
I still feel like he's. I don't think it's as good as. I still don't think it was as good as last year. It was good in this game, but I don't think it was as good as last year.
This is one of his better ones.
And I'm starting to feel it's obviously a conscious thing because he gets caught on the fifth with the ball more this year than I've ever seen him. And this game, I reckon there was at least 3 or 4 times where he was caught on the last. And but a lot of teams do the same. So maybe it's a conscious thing that if they're not in position, they're happy just to pin him and start again.
Yeah.
But
I think he did run.
I just think I feel like it's noticeable. He did, yeah.
I think he went out of his way to sort of put him in 2 minds and sort of challenge the defence a lot, which you don't see out of him. A lot of the time, he's quite happy to sit and play out the back, but he's also got that part of his game to him with a really good running game for a half. Who else did I have here? I thought Madden had a decent game, considering he doesn't get a lot of time in first grade. I thought he went all right for him. Probbo was decent as well. I thought Herbie was close to their best player, minus Carrigan out of it. Him again, up around 200 metres again. He looks like he troubles the defence most of the time if they give him that bit of space rather than sort of rushing him. He gets a little bit of time to wind up and really get into that defensive line. He causes problems a fair bit when he's got the ball. And I already mentioned Carrigan, close to man of the match. If not, he probably should have been man of the match. But I think everyone gave it to Cleary in the end, didn't they? And had him on the next line. But most of Penrith were at least decent. Like, I don't think there was a soft performance out there at all. Really good team effort. Taruva and Toto were really good. Luai and Sorensen causing heaps of problems again. They're starting to really create a nice combination, those two.
Yeah.
On that left edge. Hoskins was a little bit better than he has been in the previous few weeks. It'd be interesting to get a bit more time over Origin by the looks of it. So we'll see how he goes in the next few weeks. Edwards was fantastic again. You never see him in the wrong position. No. Whether it's attack, defense, he's just always there following the ball in attack. Pops up where, like, sometimes you won't even see him on the screen and he'll just appear and run through a gap, and where the hell did he come from? But he was fantastic again. Yo was good as well. His ball playing's probably a little bit down on what it has been previous years, but he's still effective. And Cleary was probably Penrith's best player on the field at all.
The only one you haven't mentioned is Yo, who did his usual mountain of work. So
I mentioned his ball playing probably not as effective this year.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
His defence is always amazing. He's one of those blokes who doesn't miss many.
I'm just quickly looking at Penrith now have found their stride, I think, and now you can treat them as, I think, probably competition favourites again. Just looking at and this is more from probably a Supercoach lens, really. And I think they're going to have the bye this week. They've got the Dragons on the backup on the Sunday from Origin. Then they've got the Roosters, Cowboys, Knights next 3 weeks after that. I can see them keeping their halves in cotton wool for a lot of that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Surprise me.
And then
no,
Melbourne.
Absolutely.
Then Melbourne.
Yeah, if there was
which will
Games you're going
be
to rest them for to beat the Cowboys and the Dragons.
and then
Coming off their origin.
Melbourne pre-Origin. So interesting month. But I can see them either they went and got Jack Cogger for a reason. I can see them maybe doing some.
Yeah, why risk him coming off a game?
Yeah.
3 days prior. Why risk the likes of Luai and Cleary, Yos and such?
So
I can't see the Origin games being a walk in the park for anyone.
No, definitely. So interesting who they back up, but given they've got Dragons, Roosters, Cowboys, they probably couldn't have found 3 better teams to cop in the next month. So good for them. Brisbane, by the same token, have where are we here? A pretty rough draw off the top of my head. They're going to have what have they got? They've got the Sharks next week on the Saturday, then the Knights, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Bulldogs, and the Bunnies. So interesting month ahead for them. With they'll have Reynolds, I suppose, but they'll be missing their outside backs, which does not help. And obviously their 2 best forwards. So that's going to deal up some interesting stuff for the next few weeks. They could find themselves on the slide.
I can imagine a few blokes would be a bit low on the gas tank as well, coming in and out of Origins.
Well, we've seen in the past, Haas just back up and keep doing it, but I imagine.
Yeah, but he's just fucking cyborg.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
He's different.
But we'll see who out of those outside backs does the job. We'll see what Tristan Saylor brings to the table this week as well. Anyway, I'm giving 3 points to Carrigan here. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was the best player on the field. Sounds like you're going to go with Cleary next, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I had Joe or Edwards for the one.
So did I. So which way do you want to go? Give it to Edwards, actually. Yeah. Tricky for Porridge. We do actually.
I was going to say Yo.
Give it to Yo.
Yeah.
We do great on a curve with these players, and I think by his standards, he was still good. Alrighty. Friday night kicked off with 24-22. The Dragons at the last breath defeating the Roosters. I saw this proclaimed by Triple M and some others as the game of the year. I can confirm it wasn't. I'm more than happy to accept it was the finish of the year, but the game itself, as one Avos might describe it, for the large part, was a bludger. But what do you think of the stats in the game?
Yeah, I'd like to know who said that. Anyway, in 4 tries apiece, 3 out of 4 conversions from both teams, 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for St George, 76% completion, played 70% for the Roosters, 6 line breaks to 4, 28 tackle busts to 27, 9 offloads to 6, 1 forced dropout from both teams, 321 tackles played 348, 10 errors to 12, 5 penalties conceded to 6. Just those 2 stats there alone tell you that it was not the game of the year.
No.
2 ruck improvements to 1, Teddy with 118 Supercoach points, Keary with 87, and Ben Hunt with 84. Neither side seemed to be able to make a dent anywhere for the first 10 minutes or so in this game. Like they just the ball was just going from one side of the field to the other, and they go through their set of 6 and kick it down the other end. There wasn't a lot happening first 10 minutes or so, and then until Sully's, was it an intercept or kicked up a loose ball?
It was a chip across field and he caught it and off you went.
Ran a good part of the field to run away and score. The Roosters again, like I mentioned last week, they run around like chickens with their head cut off. And I was sitting there and the daughter was playing with a balloon and let it go, and it just started floating around the room like all the air blowing out of it. And that's what the Roosters looked like again. They had no idea of what was happening, where they were going. They were just getting pushed around the field and hoping for the best. It ended up flat on the floor with the air coming out of them. But
it's now, I said last year, the form becomes a form. I'm now treating the Roosters as a bottom 4 side till I see otherwise.
That way.
And especially next 6 weeks because Teddy's going to be in Origin camp. So there's their hope. There's the hope of the side gone. No cheese, which might not be a bad thing for him. But they just, I can see a large chunk of these players, not a large chunk, 5 or 6 of these players not being at the club next year, they don't mess around. They'll try and clean out. They'll want answers quick, and they will move people on. We've Victor Radley's a liability now. Like you just can't call him in the team. Another dumb shit thing he did on the weekend. His 13 ball playing has been below probably the standard of the comp, to be honest, for the last 6 weeks anyway. Now you're expected to be at a level, and he's far from that. And I thought he was absolutely put to shame when Nathan Brown came on. He was actually the catalyst for getting the Roosters back into the game. He just got them straightened up, picked the right ball, threw had some nice touches as well. I thought he was more than cemented his spot coming into this week, and probably should keep that lock spot. He looked a class above what Radley was putting out without being sin binned, which he should have been, if not sent.
Yeah, absolutely.
But beyond that,
how do you get away with that?
I don't know. I can't give you an answer. But beyond that, they're where I thought Paulo was going, he's reverted to the worst of what he produced at Souths. Poor old Billy Smith, don't know. I don't think there's a player in the comp that can look as big or as small, depending on how well he's going. He seems to shrink back into his shell and look tiny at times. And when he's playing well, which he has at times this year, he looks like a back rower. And their forwards are lost. Like Crichton, I think he had about half hour, didn't do much. And I can't tell you too many that did. Like, I don't know what to make. It's lucky they had, and obviously because the scoreboard says that, but if Keary and Teddy aren't in this team, they don't score points anyway.
Teddy, yeah, that's right. Teddy was involved in every try, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Keary was all out. It was a Keary show and go, Teddy bust, a Teddy steal, and a Keary and another bust for Teddy. Yeah. So, yeah, concerns there. Anyway, where are we off to with your?
This is some of the worst defence I've seen in living memory from the Roosters. They've always been one of the tougher defending sides in competition, and they were pretty much exactly like the Dragons were the week before. They were not interested in using their shoulder, grabbing jerseys, blokes blowing past them without a finger laid on them. And it was quite shocking considering the Dragons aren't one of the best attacking teams. They've been close to the worst at times.
Oh, and their attack wasn't good here.
Better in this game.
I was going to make the point, their attack wasn't good here. Like the 4 tries, there's a 100-metre.
Better than it has been.
It was a bit better, but there was a Hunt individual try. There was the Sawley length of the field, and there was the end of recess kick and hope play, last try wins play. And apart from that, absolutely. Can you tell me what the rest of their attack was?
No, it was give it to Sawley and hope he breaks a tackle.
Yeah,
at that time.
Hope he catches it. Then breaks a tackle.
Much more comfortable back out on his normal side. That was definitely a change that worked for them. Then Hunt at 7, obviously, out this week, which would be interesting to see how they line up there. But they were lucky to get away with the win, considering what they were behind with 15 seconds to go. The ball was going all over the field. They didn't really know what was happening, and then a gap just appeared, and the kick that was a good kick, went into the right position, and the guy came flying through, and it was a nice try in the end, but definitely wasn't set up. It was just more of a hit and hope and throw it around and see what we can do. Yeah, it was one of their better efforts in defence and attack, really, but going off what they've produced, it wasn't a high-class effort at all. And, yeah, I think you covered it quite well on how bad that the Roosters have been recently. I thought Little and Laurie were okay in the middle for the Dragons. Sewer, Jack DeBellin were very strong. Jack DeBellin's probably had his best 3 weeks or so for years, obviously. We all know what happened there. He didn't play for a few years, but are very strong. Hunt was their man again, obviously. One that did everything. Thought Bradley, while he was, as you said, a liability at times, did more work than most of the rest of them.
Yeah,
even though it wasn't quality work. But
his defensive output's always good. Like the amount of work he gets through is good. Like you can never knock that.
Butcher was decent as well. Thought Egan, the other Butcher, sorry, Nat Butcher was good. Egan was okay. And Brown, as you mentioned, I thought he was very good coming off the bench with a point to prove. Be interesting to see how he does slot into this team. I'm pretty sure he's got a spot now for the.
Well, he's got a month. He's got 3 weeks to do that. Look, it might not be the worst to have. It might not be the worst when he's back to have Radley come off the bench and and plays
It's
an impact
interested me
player.
that they haven't played him for so long, to be honest, because he's been there for a while now, hasn't
Yeah. He's been
he?
since
And
almost the
he
start
hasn't
of the
got a
year.
start. He was always there or thereabouts for Parramatta. Like I know he'd have a shocker every now and then, but he was generally very good,
Well,
very impressive.
for probably the year he got picked for Origin, he was their best player,
Hmm.
and then he had I couldn't understand why he wasn't in the side a lot of last year, but yeah, that's the past.
Teddy and Keary, the best two players for the Roosters. Mention that easily the best two.
Yeah,
I thought Teddy was the best player on the field.
he was.
I had him with the 3 points. I had Ben Hunt with 2, and then I either had Jack DeBellin or Keary for the 1.
The only thing I'll say add about the Dragons is you can give them. I'm a little bit going to treat this as a fresh start because the first thing the new coach has done is switch Lomax and Sully straight away, put Hunt back to half back, bring Little back into the team as the hooker,
They all seem to be positive.
and they all work. So now they've got to. If they can get some consistency, there might be upside there. But you've seen the Cowboys come through playing both East teams and then lost by 60. So I'm saying it's the weakest. Those three are probably the weakest form line that last month. If you look at it right now, I'm going to treat that until otherwise as the weaker form line, I should say. 3 to Teddy, I agree. I'm giving him 3. You thinking Hunt too?
Yeah, I said Hunt, and then I had either Keary or DeBellin. 1.
I had Keary, but I do want to make a point that DeBellin has been fantastic. He's someone, I don't know how popular he is in Supercoach, but he's definitely worth thinking of there. Now he's playing those bigger minutes, and the mail around was he was in the rep selectors' thoughts leading into Origin, and probably rightfully so. But depends who you believe. Allegedly, the baggage with it was what turned off the NRL, the New South Wales selectors. But anyway,
he's been getting through his work, but he's still nowhere near as explosive as he was before he had his time to sit out of the game.
Yeah,
there was times before that where he was such a handful in attack. It was really nice passing and offloading, and just rampaging over people, and that hasn't come back. His defence has come back really well. So the attacking side of his game's still got a bit to go.
probably finds it hard to get inspired under the regime that was there. So maybe they can unlock him a bit more from that point of view now. The other game was another physical affair, a 36-16 Eels over the Bunnies Friday night, something we didn't see coming. What did you see in the stats, though?
It's one of those games where Parramatta just turned up, wasn't it? It's only happened a couple of times this year. They were in top form. 2 out of 3 conversions, played 6 out of 6 for Parramatta. A missed 2-point field goal attempt, 70% completion for the Rabbits, 78% for Parramatta. 378 plus running metres and 191 plus post-contact metres for Parramatta. 5 line breaks to 6, 20 tackle busts to 29, 5 offloads to 18 for Parramatta. 1 forced dropout to 2, 336 tackles played 274. Both teams made 11 errors, 6 penalties conceded by by South Sydney, 1 conceded by Parramatta. 1 ruck infringement against the Rabbits. Moses with 130 Supercoach points, Brown with 113, Walker with 110 for Souths.
Yeah, about 10 minutes before kickoff, I just had that gut feel that we were going to see, the proper Parramatta turn up because they only seem to do it against Souths and Penrith and Melbourne. So
yeah, correct.
They did. They were physical. They gave it to Souths, and it was an entertaining game to watch. But what did you make of South's effort? Do you think it was just the game they had to have? Was there fatigue there?
I think they got caught on the back foot a little bit early. I think Parramatta really ambushed them with up-tempo play in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game. South went with them up till sort of close to half-time. And then I think it just became too much for them, to be honest. I think they basically just went, fuck it, who cares? We're running first. This is going to be way too tough to, we're going to have to absolutely flog ourselves to win this game. So let's just go through the motions and just play it out as we normally would play a game. I just don't think they could get themselves to that level that they needed to be. They were definitely down a couple of hogs, and they didn't seem to really, the big guys didn't seem to try and get out and inspire them to that next level. No. Walker did, but the likes of Cook, Murray and Latrell just sort of seemed to just play their average game rather than trying to do anything out of the box.
I wonder if it was the sort of hangover from that doing the same thing against the Tigers, or whether it was that was a physical game, or whether maybe they just maybe they all had Origin on their mind. Who knows?
I think the Tigers have been pretty physical. Most teams have played. I can't really remember anybody coming out of a game playing against the Tigers and then being fresh and running all over the top of anyone the next week. I think they really do test, especially the middles for any team that they come up against.
I just wonder if that was they copped that and then back up into
that extra level
into having to cop Paulo and co here. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense because that's really where they did get caught out. I thought, especially early in this game, Parramatta really dominated the middle of the field at different times of this game. South did play some really nice footy just on either side at half time. The inside-outside play and then out to AJ was one of the tries of the weekend. There was some really nice passing and some short kicking just on either side of half time, and South did look really good and sort of back in and around the match and maybe even just getting in front just after half time. But it just seemed then that Parramatta cranked it up for another couple of years. They just went to a whole nother level, and South just
I agree. Probably around the 50th minute mark, I thought business had resumed and South were going to run away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't studied the substitution, but generally that coincides with Paulo and co coming back into the game, and I imagine it's similar here.
You pretty much find that's whereabouts it happened. But they played really quick out wide. A lot of ball movement.
Don't they love a short side play? Probably more than any team in the comp. He'll go up the blind side so often.
Yeah, him and Nico really enjoy that short side. They run out and start probing around, and if it's not on, they just switch it back really quickly. But they're probably two of the better exponents of the short side rate in comp, those two halves. The ball movement for mine, the quick passing, short quick passing, and they got to edges really fast, and they seem to beat a man in defence just through the ball work that they were putting in. And obviously, as soon as you're outside your man, it just causes chaos out wide for defenders. And we know a lot of defenders out there aren't the best as it is. So if you start giving them headaches to add to it, they have to start making decisions. One wrong decision out wide, it costs you 4 points.
Yeah. Individually, anyone else you want to talk about? I think it's usual suspects. I do want to wrap. Wiramu Greg, I thought he had his best game in first grade, played big minutes, and I think they've now found a very capable third string to that. How do I say it? Third string, a very capable third part of their front row rotation that is going to do a good job. He was great in this game. I thought he was physical.
A lot more reliable, hasn't he? Yeah. He had massive raps on him coming through. He started at the Cowboys, I think it was, and come down here. But he's always been built for it, and he's just really taken his game to another level this year.
Nearly put poor Damien Cook in a wheelchair, not through his fault, but that was nasty. That when he cleaned up Cook and Benny snapped his neck back, that could have been very, very ugly. So
absolutely.
Hopefully no issues there. But I just want to make a point of making for him. He was over 200 run meters and matched up to the physical Souths pack. He was great.
Yeah, he seems to enjoy it, doesn't he? He's one of those blokes that just gets better the harder they come at him. I thought Totola, Cook and Murray were all okay. The bench was ordinary for South Sydney. The bench added very little, if anything at all, really. Walker and Arrow were easily the best two South Sydney players on the field. I thought Arrow had an absolute ball terror again. He's been close to their best forward week in, week out for the last sort of month. And Walker's just at that level. He's just up near that red line level. Consistent performances week after week recently. He's been given defences all sorts of problems. Penasini and Simonson were probably the best of the back five for Parramatta. Penasini, again, while he's mentioned a few times, he's got a few issues in defence, but when he gets a bit of time to use his footwork, he leaves defenders behind a fair bit. And Simonson's been really up for the contest the last 2 weeks. I don't know what's gotten into him, but he's been more aggressive than I think I've ever seen him play in his entire career the last 2 weeks. And maybe it's just being able to get a full crack at.
In a rotation where they haven't really nailed down that side, you'd like to see him give both these blokes a decent crack at it now.
Yeah. Madison and Makatoa were good off the bench. bit of a problem now with Madison out for a month, but I thought they were both really good off the bench. Cartwright's hit the most consistent form he's been in since his debut year for Penrith there, where he was the next big thing, and obviously drifted in and out of games ever since. But he's been really consistent recently, and now with Lane out, I think for extended period as well, looks like he's got that spot locked up down there for a little while. Starting to get a decent combination with Dylan Brown there as well, so he's becoming another one of those sort of go-to forwards in attack. Parramatta, like Sorensen is for Penrith. Paulo was tremendous. He was just barreling through blokes and doing what he does so well. He's so effective when he's on and in that aggressive frame of mind. And the halves are brilliant. But between the two of them,
this was another. I compared Brown to Munster. I compared Brown to Munster about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was quietish last week, but this was him at his best again.
Week. But 2 out of the last 3 weeks,
he was superb here. This was Munster level of when he ran, he had spiders on him. When he chose to pass, it was the right time, and his kicks were pinpoint.
So scared to commit on him because they know that you can just beat him with footwork. So they try to hang off for as long as they can before they make a decision to tackle him. Yeah, it's probably not the best way to go about it either, realistically. But I wouldn't like to try and grab hold of him, but he'd make me look like an idiot, I guarantee you.
No.
So, very, very good footwork and acceleration. Definitely one of the strike sixes in the game. I had him as man of the match, to be honest.
So did I.
I know Moses got all the plaudits from all the commercial stations and Fox and all the rest of it, but I definitely thought without him, a lot of the stuff doesn't happen out on that field.
I can confirm my notes in front of me say Brown 3, Moses 2, Greg / Paulo 1. So you can take your pick if you agree.
I had Paulo Hopgood. So
okay.
Probably
so
go
you're brushing Mitch.
Considered. I had Moses for 2.
Oh, gotcha.
For the 1 point, I had Paulo Hopgood.
Well, Hopgood's probably the only bloke you haven't really touched on. Just give us a quick proxy of why you're thinking that.
Well, he went back in again and played I think he played 70-odd minutes in this one. He might have even played the entire 80. I reckon he probably accounted for half of those offloads. Just going off the top of my head, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he was fantastic again with his offloads. He's just consistently gritty in everything he does. He takes the ball into the line hard, and he's always looking for space play off the back of it. And his defence is strong. He's just a bloke who works for 80 minutes, or every minute he's on the field.
He had 4 offloads. Paulo had 4, and Brown had 4, just for the record.
He made up near 40 tackles and plenty of run meters. So.
Yeah, all right, now I'm fine with that. Give it to him. Do you love a
No, I was going to say give it to Paulo because we both had Paulo.
Okay.
But honourable mentions for Hopgood and Walker from mine.
Yep.
Who were yours?
Now you've covered that. No, I struggled to. Obviously, Cody was Moses. Good for. Moses was the other honourable mention, just the obvious there. Did have whatever he had 3 try assists.
Oh, Moses got our 2 points. Yeah. So Brown, Moses, and then.
Thank you. Note that down, GT. We'll put up the ladder before it goes behind closed walls next week.
Oh, yeah, we should do Origin. Getting shit together, GT.
So what's... it's coming, Greg. What's your read on Parramatta, though? How do you treat them? And you just write it off for Souths? I think there's going to be a few Souths blokes with a point
that
to
doesn't
prove.
affect Souths too much, I don't think, unless they come up with some long-term injuries in the near future. I can't see them missing the top 4 now. Now I've said that, I'll lose every game until the end of the year.
Para now get the Cowboys, the Bulldogs, and Manly. So not a bad little...
Para now, for mine, still a concern of missing the 8, to be honest. I always had them in and around 5th and 6th, and now for mine, they're borderline 8th. It depends which one of them decides to turn up.
Oh, yeah, one or all of those teams could beat Para the next 3 weeks, but... It's a pretty cosy draw, you would think.
You would think so. If they can keep Brown and Moses on the field, you'd think they would win somewhere around 70% of the remaining games this year. If they're going to put in performances like that most weeks, there should probably be even a higher percentage, and that should see them finishing around 7th and 8th.
You got a pretty. So for the
as you said, there's been games that they've lost where they really shouldn't have lost at the start of the year, and they've set themselves up for failure at the moment. They're going to need a good effort. Be contenders at the back end of the year.
Keep cracking on.
Yeah, mate.
26-6 Saturday afternoon kicked off with the Sharks over the Knights. This was the classic case for mine of just class prevailing here, but you can tell us what the stats said.
We had 4 tries to 1, 4 out of 4 conversions, played 1 out of 1, 1 out of 1 penalty attempts. Cronulla, 65% completion, played 67%, 525 plus running metres, 157 plus post-contact metres. For Cronulla, 7 line breaks to 1, 43 tackle busts, played 32, 8 offloads to 9, 2 forced dropouts by Cronulla, 0 from Newcastle, 317 tackles, played 350, 16 errors, played 14, 5 penalties conceded from both teams. Kennedy with 98 Supercoach points, Moylan with 82, and then 6 other Cronulla players before you got down to Bradman Best on 57 Supercoach points. Solid enough performance. The defence was okay for most parts. They weren't really tested too often, but Cronulla defended quite well, I thought. Their errors are so frustrating to watch as a Cronulla supporter. Every week they make over 10 errors. And half of them, like, you don't mind seeing it if they're throwing the ball around and they're trying to score points. They're trying new set plays and all that kind of shit. The ball hits the ground. Yeah, fair enough. But more than half of them are just carrying the ball into defence and the ball just pops out.
Yeah.
Teague Wilton had one of his most unflattering nights of his career in this one. He seemed to drop the ball every second or third time he touched the thing. It was just so frustrating to watch at times. As our mate GT, who was there with us on the weekend, managed to mention, never watched a 20-point win and been so frustrated by the end of the match. Like, they should have won this by 40.
Yeah.
They were all over Newcastle. They were constantly just field position, possession, and constantly pressuring them. Newcastle scrambled well to probably keep it to 26 points, but the Sharks just shot themselves in the foot time and time again in attack. They just turned over ball and good ball and bad ball. There was a period there I think they had to defend for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it was just off their own bullshit. They'd get the ball, have it, hold it for 2 tackles and drop it, give it back to Newcastle. Then they'd get a forced drop out, and then they get the ball back, and they'd drop it on the third day. And it became so frustrating by the end of this game to watch as a Cronulla fan, even though it was quite a comfort.
It was. Let's talk positives. You made the comparison to David Peachy for Bubba Kennedy a few weeks back, and I can see what you're saying. I can see what you're saying. He doesn't have the full lope, but just the way I reckon even that did he score the first try? He scored the first try to set one up, but just the way he chimed in and that footwork, like it, you can't unsee it once it's been.
It's with that. It's more so for me that wraparound play where he's coming around the back left, and the way he just moves into the line.
Yeah,
it's just eerily similar to David Peachy and his big attacking weapons. That left foot step where he stands up nice and tall and cuts back on the inside of people. Yeah, they can't get a hand on him.
No, it's a very, very sound comparison, and as you said, you can't unsee it once you do. He was fantastic. I thought he was the best player on the field.
Yeah, a little bit shorter, and his stride's not as long.
Yeah,
probably got a fraction more acceleration than Peach, but Peach is probably a bit quicker over a longer distance. So, but yeah, very, very similar type player. He was close to the best player on the ground. I think he probably was.
That's what I just said. So yes.
Yeah, he was fantastic the way he chimed into the back line.
And surely Connor Tracy has a first grade spot somewhere doing something.
Yeah, it's already rumours that he's out of there.
Really?
There was linked to the Eels during the week.
Well, they want an X factor, don't they? Whatever that means. So,
how classy
what is his best spot? Is he a centre?
I think centres is to be honest. Probably a little bit small to play at fullback, and I don't know how he goes under the high ball. He came through as a half, so if there's a team out there screaming for probably a 6, probably be an okay fit as a 6, running 5'8". With he's got a nice little short ball. His long ball's not the greatest, but and he used to be, from what I can remember, a handy kicker, close to like a short. He had a handy short kicking game as well. So probably someone that could fit into that mould of Blue Eyes and play similar to the Blue Eyes and Browns as a 6. But Yeah, didn't he give Gagai some headaches out there
Yeah.
on that edge for Newcastle?
Well, he played
He
Gagai
stood
out
him
of an
up
origin spot.
that many times.
7 missed tackles for Gagai, and it was all, I'd say, all 7 were just about thanks to Connor.
Yeah, I think 2 of them were in one in one tackle. He beat him
Yeah.
twice in the same tackle. One on either shoulder. He's got really, really nice acceleration and just pretty good pace out there. And he's had a lot of injuries through his career, which has probably stopped him from cementing the spot earlier than what he has. And yeah, he's sitting back now behind a pretty decent back line. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was calls for him to be plucked out of Cronulla's side from someone else in the NRL.
Yeah.
Silly not to ask the question.
That's right. What else can talk about it? Yeah, they didn't play at their best. Brayley, just good on him getting that, a week and a bit in Origin camp just to get a feel for all that, because he has been very, very good. His execution has been great all year, so kudos to him. Finucane got through a mountain of defensive work, and it was what it was.
When they clicked, they look really smooth. When everything gelled together, their attack looks as smooth as pretty much anyone realistically, and they did it easy. They just stripped them for numbers a couple of times. It just looked like a training run, as they tend to do sometimes when they're really up and going. Newcastle were a bit flat there at times. Took a pretty nice offload there from Bradman Best, because I thought that was a pretty good tackle from Ramian, but there was nobody else around to help him out. And then you get the offload back to Ponga, and I don't think there was anyone within about 5 or 10 metres of him. So I don't know what happened there in defence, but obviously not a highlight for the Sharks. Gago was okay with the ball, but he looked hopeless, as we mentioned, in defence. Best and Marzu were probably the best of their back 5. I really like Marzu. He's growing into one of my favourite players, to be honest, as an outside back who just really loves to barge into blokes. He's not making the same mistakes he was making up at the Gold Coast either.
No.
He seems to become a more well-rounded, solid player there. It's like the way he just bumps people off and keeps. He doesn't seem to slow down. He just keeps going same speed.
He's just got that low centre of gravity. He gets himself low and just pushes through with that strong base.
Hastings is pretty good again. It's be interesting to see how they link up this week with Gamble coming back in. David Saifidi was pretty good. And Elliott and Leo Thompson were probably close to their better players on the field. Frizzell had another really good night.
Anyone whinging about Frizzell being a New South Wales team, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I think he deserves his spot. I didn't expect him to start, but
never did.
Brings that physicality. Will get through work. Can play 80 if needed. Can play half hour if needed. And
his defence is fantastic.
But he won't. He's not going to let anyone down. Put it that way. So,
kudos. He's been in great form this year.
Yeah, I agree. If it is true that he's on the market, agents tend to. I found agents tend to. I think it was flagged by someone on Twitter actually. But when you see someone linked to the Tigers or Bulldogs, usually that just means they're after an upgrade at their own club. I've found. So, given that's the only 2 clubs Frizzell's been linked with, I assume he's probably staying in Newcastle. I think they just bought a house up there actually, so he's just looking for another, little top up for his last contract, I assume.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to me if the Tigers are after any back rowers.
I couldn't imagine having just let Joffa go. They'd go and spend 600 on a 31-year-old second rower.
Bateman, Papali'i, you got the young blokes coming through.
Madamua, Pole.
I can't see any need for them to be putting anybody in the forward.
No, and
they need centres.
Yeah.
Well, not even.
No, we don't need centres.
Toa was. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to those blokes very shortly, in a couple of minutes, in fact. You mentioned Finucane, he was fantastic. Royce Hunt was pretty good, ball in hand again. He's got a few problems in defence. He doesn't move sideways all that well, but he's a very good player. Hazelton, I thought, was fantastic coming off the bench. He had some charges that were brilliant. 15, 20-metre runs, carrying blokes with him. And considering I've banged on about how much we've been lacking size and depth in that middle forwards for Cronulla for a while, he was an injection that we needed this week. And Uele didn't get many minutes, but he had a positive outcome on the team as well, coming back playing with a bit of size in the middle of the field, which sort of helped cement the middle of the field for him. Nikora was fantastic again, and I thought Moylan was very good in this game.
He was great.
He was fantastic with his ball playing. He was close to one of the best on the field, I thought. And his footwork seems a bit sharper than it has recently. I don't know why, but he just seems to be a fraction. His acceleration just seems to be there a little bit more, and there's a bit of footwork at the moment.
Maybe his
It's
hammies are
actually
finally
challenging. Yeah,
finally
maybe it's
knitted back
finally
together.
knitted back together after snapping 27 times. Yeah, Hines, Kennedy, and Tracy were the three that seemed to cause problems for the defence more than most.
Yeah.
The Sharks team.
A
I
rare
had Kennedy. Oh,
a rare Sharks game where Nico might not get a point. So
yeah, no. I've got him in the talking for one, but wouldn't be surprised if he gets left out. I had Kennedy with the 3, Tracy with the 2, and then Moylan or Hines. 1.
I had Moylan or Finucane. So let's go
Give
with
it to Moylan.
Give it to Moylan. It's fun watching these games with GT because he loves commentating on Wade Graham. Old man hit up.
I may have made a comment.
Old man hit up. So,
no, that was me. The old man hit up. Hey, Gro, you made about the old man hit up where he just jogs into the line and stands there.
Yes, all right,
play the ball.
I'll play it now.
Did it like 3 times in the space of about 5 minutes. I was just like, oh my,
what's
going on? Remember when he used to just tear into
he used to be off his head.
In defence and attack, he'd just tear into the opposition. Now he's just, oh yeah, there's another 20k. Just jogging into the line. Very good.
I can't judge him for it. So we'll move on.
Oh, mate, you'll come back and he'll have some very, very strong games, but it's noticeably aged in the last 12 months, 18 months.